You're listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone, good day to you. Welcome to the sixth episode of the Armchair Cricket Podcast. This is a podcast about Test cricket by armchair critics of the game. We are recording this episode on the 5th of February. Thanks for all your support by listening to our podcast. Do continue to listen to us and also remember to introduce this to your cricket-loving friends. You can find us on Podbean or Apple Podcasts or even Spotify. Just look for Armchair Cricket Podcast or find the links to these in the episode description. Please give us a five-star rating on Apple Podcasts and share your thoughts in the comments section. You can email us on armchair.cricket@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @armchaircrickpod. We are sometimes on Twitter during live matches. You can join us there for a banter. Now, I have with me Ajit. Hello, Ajit. How are you doing?
Hi, Giri. Yeah, it has been an interesting sort of a week so far for me. Quite busy at work. But cricket keeps me going. Let me put it like this.
Also, eventful couple of days, I would say, right? Towards the weekend last week, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Of course. So before we get into that, let's quickly look back at the trivia question we had asked. So there was a main trivia question and another smaller one, right? Mm-hmm. So the main trivia question we had asked was, which is the only batting record remaining from the first test? The first ever test between Australia and England in 1877 at the MCG, right?
Yeah.
So we have not got any positive answers for this one. So I will answer the question. The answer is the percentage of runs scored by a batsman in a completed test innings, right? So this was done by a certain Charles Bannerman, right? So this guy has a multiple record set from this first test match. Many of those are the firsts in cricket itself. So before we go into that, I would just like to concentrate on the one record which still stands as the longest standing batting record. That is that Charles Bannerman scored 165 not out of his team's total of 245. So this gives him a percentage of 67.34% of the team's runs scored by one innings. That is one batsman's innings. So this is still the record for the most number of or most highest percentage of runs scored by a batsman in a completed innings for his team. So if you look at the list, right, most of these are from a slightly different era, but occasionally you see a test pop up from the last decade or the last 2 decades. For example, at number 2 is Michael Slater's 123 out of 184 in 1999 in an Ashes test, or number 3 is Lakshman's 167 out of 261, which is an innings. Yeah, in Sydney, if you remember, 2000. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
And number 4 is then, like, let's say the bolter, or the surprising one. It's Craig Brathwaite scoring 94 out of 148 for West Indies in 2015, right? So there's an occasional bolter, but mostly these were records which were in a different era. With the improvement in batting conditions, also with the improvement in batting and equipment, I think batsmen nowadays, these rare records like one person scoring a large percentage of the team's runs doesn't happen very often. But when I look at this list, what I see is most of these scores are big ones. For example, Seymour Nurse scored at 258 out of his team's 417. Even Charlie Bannerman, 165 out of 245. These are all big runs, right? Lakshman's 167.
Yeah.
There are a couple of innings which would be surprising. For example, Asanka Gurusinha scored 52 out of his team's 82, which was in 1990 and so on. So there are, I think in this list, this is the smallest score. The score of 52 by Asanka Gurusinha out of his team's 82, even though the percentage is 63, the individual score of 52 is the lowest on this list. But the highest on this list,
I was going to ask,
is Don Bradman's 334 out of 566, which is 59% of the team's runs, right? So, and there's also another 299 by the same man, which would amount to about 58.5. So if he went big, you can imagine he went very big, right? We know this. Actually, I would like to make one small correction. I had not noticed that there are couple of lower scores. I'm really sorry about this. There are 2 lower scores. Len Hutton once scored a 30 out of his team's 52. This was all the way back in 1948 in that Invincibles tour of Australia. And then as recently as 2018, Craig Overton scored 33 out of his team's 58 when England collapsed to New Zealand in the March of 2018, just last year. He scored 33 not out in his team's 58 all out, right? So there are some very shocking scores. So this is a very fascinating read. So let's also, there's Liton Das, I think, who's again very new. He scored 25 in his team's score of 40. Wow. Again 2018. So there are these occasional bolters. You would not look to, because it falls quite lower in the amount of percent, it doesn't really jump out at you. But 25 is probably the lowest on this list. I think I can safely say there's a 26 not out and there's a 25. So 25 I think is the lowest on this list. And they stop at 55%, of course. They stop at 50.
Probably saved his career, I think. Liton Das's career.
Indeed.
25. Right.
All right. So if I were to quickly run through some of the other records that Charles Bannerman has, is of course, because there are all firsts. It was in the very first test. So he was the first ever English-born player to represent Australia. He faced the first ball, scored the first runs in tests. He scored the first 50, the first 100, and the first 150 in a test, right? Because his score was 165. He was also the first batsman to be retired hurt. So in the basically just after lunch on the second day, he had to retire hurt because he was injured badly. Then, of course, also he hit more than 15 fours in the innings. This is the first. And this is still the most runs scored by an Australian debutant, 165 in the debut innings. This is still the highest score, right? And so on and so on. So there are many records he holds, but the one that will probably never be broken, I dare say that, is his percentage of runs, 67.34 in a completed innings. So the other question that we had asked was, who is the tallest double centurion in tests? Is it Jason Holder was the question. So we saw that today today being the 5th of February, somebody has asked on Cricinfo whether Jason Holder is the tallest centurion, right? And the answer has come that, surprisingly, Tony Greig, who I always thought was a little shorter than Jason Holder, apparently is a little taller by a matter of a few centimeters taller than Jason Holder, and therefore I think he had a very nice hairstyle that day. That's how I think he got taller, but let's not get into that. And he probably is the tallest centurion, but my claim, in international cricket, Jason Holder is still the tallest double centurion. I would like to hear from our listeners if they have a different view, right? All right, then. Moving on to the cricketing events from around the world, let's first look at the second test between Australia and Sri Lanka. Shall we do that, Giri?
Yeah, let's do that. Go ahead.
So if I were to quickly summarize what happened, right? Sri Lanka got beaten in a bad way. So this is something we had predicted all along, that Australia may take the brunt of their frustration out on Sri Lanka, and it really happened like that. So Australia having batted first, I think when we were recording the previous podcast, it was the first day of the test, and Australia were already in a very strong position, and we had left Joey Burns at 172 not out, and we were hoping that this guy would get to 200, right? Unfortunately, he failed, so he made 180. But then you have Head, who had already made 161, and then of course there was Curtis Patterson, who converted his overnight score to 100, right? And Australia declared on 534 for 5. So they gave themselves enough time to sort of, probably, if required, to come back and bat again in the fourth innings. But then, as it turned out, it was never required, because Sri Lanka, first of all, made just 215 in the first innings. And then instead of choosing to force the follow on, Australia chose to bat. And here, Usman Khawaja scored 100. So in the first bowling innings of Australia, Stark had already taken a 5-hour. So these were probably the two underperforming players in that team. So they sort of made up for that, right? And then, of course, Australia declared at 196 for 3, setting Sri Lanka an improbable 516 to chase, which they could not. So they were 149 all out. You saw this, this fatigue in the Sri Lankan team. They were really not in the fight in the last innings. So they just collapsed to 149 all out. Again, Stark took another 5-hour, I think, and Cummins chipped in with 3. So it was an overall a thrashing Sri Lanka received at the hands of Australia. Something you want to talk about in this series, Giri? Anything you want to highlight?
Yeah, I think you can probably see the difference, the level of skills the two teams exhibited, not just physically but also mentally. I think Australia were tougher. Sri Lanka were probably depleted
Hmm.
in terms of team personnel as well as in terms of plans or strategy or anything like that. So they just didn't have the energy, come at Australia and then make a match show any kind of fighting spirit. I think they were completely gone towards the end of the series. I think they probably were also looking forward to ending the series and moving on to other things.
Indeed.
Um, yeah, it's with the World Cup approaching. I think Sri Lanka will probably have to have a deeper look into what they've been doing over the last few months, and also
Hmm.
try to build a stable base on which the team can perform. I think they lack some quality players like Angelo Matthews at the moment.
Of course.
But once he's back from his injury, I think he will definitely bolster the batting strength. But
Of course.
then they have to reinvent themselves, kind of. I think they probably have to do a lot of homework and be ready for World Cup. Otherwise, you look at West Indies. West Indies are on the way up, so you're going to have a lot of trouble facing teams like that. I think even Bangladesh may be a bit of a handful if Sri Lanka were to go this route. If they don't pick themselves up. I think it's going to be quite tough for them. But I hope that they will revive themselves and come back strong. Yeah,
Indeed.
yeah,
Now, so as you say, the test team is really on a trough, on an extended trough. Ever since all those greats retired, they're struggling. So just a couple of small things to highlight. I think Karunaratne had a nasty injury on the first day's play or the second day's play when Sri Lanka batted, and I think he was declared clear of all injury. So that was a good thing. So he was able to come back and resume his innings on the third and the fourth days, right? And also, I think Kusal Perera suffered another injury, another horrific. I think Jay Richardson hit him on the helmet, and in this case, for I think Karunaratne was hit on the helmet by Stark. So
yeah,
those frightening Australian bowlers finally came to the fore. Stark took a 10 for with 2 5 outs in the test, right?
yeah.
So that's one tick, one more tick. Let me put it like this: an Australian sort of to-do list, and of course, Khwaja scoring 100. I think Khwaja also after this match sort of spoke a little bit about how harrying that experience of his brother being arrested for some terror suspect issues really affected him. So he spoke about this. And interestingly, also, I think there's a now this new team ethos of Australia we're able to see under Tim Payne what they're able to do. I think this is very clearly visible because now they're winning. Yeah. But this team now has its own ethos that Tim Payne is able to sort of impart to the team. You can see that.
Mm.
Of course, when you look at the total run scorers and bowlers, you see Australia dominating all of it. The top three run scorers are Australian and the top three wicket takers are Australian. Pat Cummins
Mm.
rightfully finished man of the series for taking 14 wickets at an average of
Yeah,
7.78, right? And
yeah.
also Jay Richardson had a promising debut. Stark had a quiet series until he took 10 for in the second test. So that was a good thing. So he sort of also showed that hunger is still alive.
I think
So
he found his form as well, right? I think he found his form right at the end of the summer, Australian summer, almost. Yeah,
exactly. Now, well, better late than never, let's say.
yeah,
And of course, one last thing to mention here, we've just got to know that Dinesh Chandimal has not only been sacked as the captain of Sri Lanka in tests, but also has been dropped from the team altogether.
yeah.
So this is a bit of a knee-jerk reaction from the selectors, right?
Yeah, I think they've asked him to go back to domestic circuit and then, spend some time there, hone his skills, and then come back, right?
It's a
And
bit
that's what
weird. I
they've
mean,
done, yeah, basically. Yeah,
look, he's one of the more experienced batters there. Without really Matthews in the lineup, there's nothing. Now they head on to South Africa for a full tour, and now Karunaratne will be the captain, is what I read. It seems like a really, really interesting and not a good thing to do in the World Cup
but
year.
this is not the first time that Sri Lankan, selectors have done this. I think they also did this. Who was the other captain who was dropped unceremoniously after a bad series? Was that
I think
Angelo
it might have
Matthews?
been Matthews. Yes,
Yeah.
might have been Matthews.
So it doesn't surprise me, but then again, I don't know what they'll do from here. They are going to South Africa next,
Yeah,
so they will have a couple of test matches there. I think 5 one-day matches.
yeah, yeah.
So what will they do with this team? They need more personnel, more
Well,
skills. Yeah,
if anything, they'll need some fast bowlers who don't break down if somebody sneezes on them. No, just
yeah.
Andrew Fernando put it in his article very nicely.
Mm.
The only bright spot, if any, is the 5-4 that Suranga Lakmal took in the first innings, first test, right? But then that's about it. He had to also not. He could also not get to play the second one because he himself was
But is he
injured.
expected to be fit for the
Yes,
South African series? Okay. Well,
yes,
he could
he's.
also be a captain, right? He was captain briefly.
I think
Um,
him losing the series against England may have cost his chances. You know.
too many, they keep chopping players and captaincies with Sri Lanka. I think they need to give their players a chance. I think they need to give them a longer run, like
Now,
they're doing with, for example, Sarfraz in Pakistan. They don't have any other alternative. So
that's a good point. So just to finish that point, what you brought up, I think Pakistan Cricket Board did the right thing by confirming Sarfraz as the captain until the World Cup, so that any divisive thoughts and divisive talk in the media can be. This is what needs to be done. But in this article, Andrew Fernando points out that it needs a grassroots up change in Sri Lankan mindset to cricket. Right? Anything that happens top down is really not useful. Changing
yeah.
the people of the board, changing captains, changing the coaches, that is really not the solution. That's what he points out. This is an interesting article I would like to recommend to anybody who wants to really read.
And
What
come to think of it, in 1996 when Sri Lanka won the World Cup, they had such a nice team back then. You remember? They were so strong.
was.
Of course, they were also playing in subcontinent conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And now, 23 years later, I think won how many World Cups? I think 4 or 5 World Cups later.
Mm-hmm.
There's a team right now looks not even a shadow of that. It's just so
Indeed.
depleted.
Well,
It's really sad to see.
on their day, Afghanistan and Bangladesh will beat them comfortably, I think, even in one day. So it's
Yeah,
not a good thing. It's not a
yeah.
good look.
We should
But
keep an
okay,
eye out for Afghanistan. I think they will be
in the shortest
interesting.
format and the shorter formats, they're very dangerous,
Yeah.
right? All right. So,
Hmm.
if you were to now move on from the pathos that Sri Lanka is facing to some really bright spots that West Indies are now finally looking at, I think, right?
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
like to take us through the second test quickly, Giri?
Yeah. Let's do that. So second test was, I think we started covering this test match in our previous episode. So by the time
Indeed.
I think let's go through that again. So this was played at Antigua.
Antigua? Yes.
So West Indies had won the toss and they had inserted England to bat first on a greenish pitch, where there was a lot of bounce expected, and the fast bowlers would find it very conducive. England had it was a modest total in the first innings. The
Of
top order
course.
did not contribute except for Bairstow and some
Mm-hmm.
counter attack down the order by Moeen Ali and Ben Foakes. Apart from that, they were found lacking in the batting department.
Mm-hmm.
But West Indian pacers, Akima Roach, Gabriel, and Alzari Joseph, also holder. I mean, they all bowled well, very tight line and length, and troubled all the batsmen.
Mm-hmm.
So English batsmen rode their luck, and then they managed 187 all out. Roach and Gabriel were, like I said, all the fast bowlers were amongst the wickets.
Okay.
In response, West Indies began very cautiously. Old-fashioned way of batting, grinding
Mm-hmm.
the opposition out, and the bowlers, taking the shine off the ball. The opening partnership was very good. I think Brathwaite and Campbell batted quite well. They spent a lot of time at the
Mm-hmm.
crease. They basically nullified the threat of Anderson and Broad. So they played, I think, 33 overs until Campbell got out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think by then, I think Anderson and Broad had already spent a lot of energy in trying to get these people out. Of course, there was an element of surprise with the pitch because of the way it was behaving. So you
Mm-hmm.
never knew when the bowlers would come in. But these two had done their job. So the other batsmen, again, the top order, I think they made a huge difference when you compare West Indies and England there. Shea Hope also spent a lot of time at the crease. He was a bit more brisk, I think, compared to the others. But
Mm-hmm.
then the standout player in their side, I think this is Darren Bravo. He's naturally an attacking player, but on this occasion, he spent about, I think, 200 balls or something. He occupied the crease for a long time. I think
216 balls.
three
Right.
sessions, close to 3 sessions. Yeah,
Easily. Yes.
yeah. And then at the end, I think they managed 300, and then England in the second innings, they were routed. They were routed for 132. And the fast bowlers again doing a very good job for West Indies. I think the top scorer for England was Joss Butler with 24, and that paints the full picture there. That nobody really turned up for England. They were all completely, routed. They were gone. We also have to remember that unfortunately West Indies fast bowler Alzari Joseph lost his mother on I think on the third day or the So when
Indeed.
he came out to bat on the third day for West Indies, I think he was grieving. So, but he didn't let his team down. So he bowled well. He got the initial breakthroughs. To be honest, I think he bowled he bowled Denley with a beautiful ball.
Yeah.
And then I think after that, West Indies were left with a target of how much? I think 14 runs.
Yeah.
They finished it off in no time.
So
in the end, I think it was a completely dominating performance by West Indies over England. England batsmen not delivering the goods. West Indies, but apart from that, I think you really have to commend West Indies. I think they completely outclassed England on this occasion. So, yeah,
indeed,
it was a very nice match. And then, that's about it.
Oh, indeed. So 3-day test, but if you're a fan of good test match cricket, this was a fantastic match, right?
Yeah.
I think you've mostly covered all the the scoring points and the talking points. So you've done a good job with that. And so the only a couple of things I would like to point out what you said about Bravo, right?
Yeah.
That Bravo took 216 balls over a 50. This is of course the slowest of his career. It's also the slowest by West Indian ever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this places him on a rather unglamorous list, So this places him third on the list of all-time slowest 50s. So this is a really a stodgy or a blockers 11 sort of, so to say. And I will not go through the whole list, but in the top three we have Barnacle Bailey. He was called Barnacle because he was so tough to get off the crease. He used to stick to the crease like a barnacle. Trevor Bailey. So this guy took 350 balls for a 50. This was all in the 50s. And then, of course, Chris Tavare, who's supposed to have never played a shot in anger through his career. They joke, right? So this guy took 236 while making a 50 on the way to 82. And this was in the 80s against Pakistan, right? So then Bravo is third on that list, which is you wouldn't expect for somebody with such a sparkling stroke play, right? You would not expect such a guy, but I think he had a point to prove, and he did it in a very effective way. On a pitch where nobody was even ready to or willing to play 50, 60 balls or able to play 50, 60 balls, this guy plays 216 balls, as you say, spends better part of 350 minutes at the crease, right? So I think he made his own point. I think this 50 runs in this pitch is probably worth 3 times its number on a different pitch, on a pitch that is more conducive to batting. Probably he would be 150 not out, right? So it is a fantastic innings. I think he held the innings together all the way, and he was the last man dismissed.
Yeah.
Right? And that more or less did it for England, because the West Indian team is riding on such high confidence that they simply blew the England batting team second time around. As you say, Alzari Joseph, in spite of being in such a lot of grief, took 2 wickets. And of course, the captain Holder took 4 and Roach took 4. So Roach had 2 4-fers in the game. And basically, as you say, if you look at the series stats, Holder is the top scorer, and the top 3 run scorers are all West Indian. And in the top 3 bowlers, you have 2 West Indians. Only number 3 is Stokes, who has 8 wickets. So it's very interesting. So you can see the dominance also in the stats and also in the scoreline. So just a couple of small things. West Indies are fully geared up to go on to probably do a whitewash, blackwash, right? And then Holder sort of becomes the first West Indian all-rounder since Sir Garfield Sobers to top the all-rounders chart in tests, right? Since some early 70s, this is.
Yeah.
Then we got to know he's been banned from the third test because of lower rate. Would you like to quickly run us through that fiasco, Kiri?
I don't know what to say. I mean, so we had a 5-day test match, which got finished inside of 3 days, right? So where did we lose time? So we still finished ahead of time. And both teams played such good cricket, especially West Indies. They provided a lot of entertainment for the people who watch the game from the stadium, as well as people who watch them on TV all over the world. And there were four fast bowlers bowling for the best part of the day, and balls being hit all across. Does it really matter? I mean, if you look at the over rate, I think he was short by only 2 overs, right? I think he was just short by 2 overs. And if you look at that in the context of the whole match, I mean, come on. I mean, MCC needs to, have a look at this rule. Unless
I think it's
a match
probably
has
the
been.
ICC, but yes, I take it.
Yeah, MCC sets the rule. I mean, laws, right? Law of the game, whatever. So this is such a killjoy, as one of the writers on Cricinfo put it.
Indeed.
I mean, I don't mean this is. Yeah.
I think highlighted that article. You're right. So they probably just enforced the law based on what is written in the book, and the rest of it was not taken into consideration.
This kind of reminds me of the semi-final match between South Africa and England in 1992, the World Cup.
Oh God, yes, that
13 ball, 22 runs. 13 balls, 22 runs. Macmillan is on strikes. It rains. There is a short rain break, and then they come back. It's revised to 1 ball, 22 runs. How can you score 22 runs in 1 ball?
Exactly.
Come on.
Exactly.
This is one of those things. I think they need to really think about this. This is crazy.
Not just using the rule book, but really using common sense. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And this guy sort of deserved to, if go to the last test, raise the trophy minimum, and maybe even lead them to 3-0. And you're also robbing West Indies of this very key player. Look, he might be culpable as far as the rules are concerned, but there is sometimes mitigating circumstances, and not something outside of the play, but in the play. He's only 2 overs short, and it's a 90 over test day. There has to be some mitigation. There has to be some way made. It could be a 5-minute delay for somebody changing a glove or some such. This is silly, but you're right. According to the rules, he's been banned. So probably he was already on some notice list, because he was already behind over rates for a couple of series, and therefore it's accumulated to this. But this really robs West Indies of their most important player and this father figure almost, even though he's not the oldest the team.
I mean, it's just like a captain of a football team who is playing in the finals, not being allowed to play because he had 2 yellow cards during the tournament, right? I mean,
you say no, that's a good example, and unfortunately, in both the cases, they would be enforced, as you say. So just going forward, I think just if we were to quickly look at what sort of changes are possible, the third test happens in St. Lucia, right? And Darren Sammy Stadium. And here, I think from West Indian team, they this is a big blow. They have Craig Brathwaite who can do the captaincy. He's done it before. But in terms of what really Holder is able to bring to the team on the field and through his performances, this they'll miss. And also, he's an all-rounder, right? Let's not forget it. Right, and then so now they have drafted Kimo Powell, who's a full bowler and who can bat a bit, into the team. So for West Indians, I would say either it's Jamal Warrican, who's already in the squad as a left-arm spinner, or Kimo Powell, who'll step into the squad. For England, if you were to quickly look at it, the lineup chosen was very good. They just didn't do their jobs. None of those people who are very aggressive chose to stay and to sort of block some time. What Bravo did, Bravo showed them what needed to happen on that pitch. Even though there were enough things that could go wrong, he showed you could still bat 300 balls on that pitch, right? Up 300 minutes on that pitch. So none of them did that. So, but for them, at least, maybe they want to bring in Vokes for Sam Curran, or maybe even Leach, Jack Leach, the left-arm spinner. So these are some possible changes. But all in all, the match starts on 9th. So maybe, in our following podcast, we'll cover it.
But or they drop one of their keepers.
Yeah, I mean, but I think they need the batting. They need all the batting they can get. They had 150, or between the 2 innings they had 310 runs. So.
No, but I think the batsmen are also not playing in the right positions in the English team, to be honest.
Would you see some changes there, maybe?
I think Johnny Bairstow may come in at 5, probably. And Joe Root may go up number 3. Mm-hmm. Who is their best batsman? Who is their best batsman right now?
It's Joe Root. You're right. In that 11, it's Joe Root. Yes.
It's Joe Root, yeah. It's going to be tough. Ben Stokes should still come in at 6, I think. They also have Moeen Ali. I totally forgot about him, of course.
Exactly.
Um,
This is a can of worms, Giri. My
but I
recommendation
think
is to
Butler
not open.
should come in. Butler should be number 6, in my opinion. He should not come in too early. Yeah.
I see. Let's see. So for me, maybe they might also make room by dropping Folks, one of the, as you say, multitude of keepers,
Mm.
and allowing because he had a bruised hand as well in the second test. Maybe that's an opportunity to let him rest, Folks.
But he's a
And
natural keeper. He's a
he is,
natural.
he is,
Yeah.
of course. But then, in the given form, given the amount of batting these both guys do, Josh Butler and Bairstow, I don't see them getting dropped. Let's see how it goes. So yeah, let's really follow up that in the following podcast, one of the upcoming episodes, right, Kiri?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
now let's switch over to the limited overs leg of the ongoing matches. So the one that is okay. The one that we can quickly do is the India versus New Zealand series. So, would you like to quickly run us through the score sheet for the fifth ODI, Giri?
Yeah. The last ODI, right?
Yeah.
This was played at Wellington. So India won the toss, and Rohit Sharma said at the toss that they wanted to bat first because they wanted to see how they performed while batting, knowing that they had lost a previous game. Also, where was that? Was that at the same place? Hamilton, I think it was at
It's
Hamilton,
Hamilton.
where they were bowled
Yeah,
out for 90 odd runs. So
indeed.
they wanted to give themselves another chance. So they wanted to play a bat again and then see how that went.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they had a collapse at the
Uh,
top of the order. They were 4 down for 18 runs.
yeah.
And then I think Rayudu showed his real worth there. I think he showed what a valuable team member he is. He stabilized the innings along with Vijay Shankar. Vijay Shankar got 45.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kedar Jadhav also supported Rayudu. He got 34. Pandya. At the end, he played a cameo for 45 runs. But then Rayudu, it was unfortunate to miss out on a century. He got out for 90 runs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think without that contribution and without the stability that he provided there in the middle order, I think India would not have managed the score they did. They got at the end. It was 252. They were bowled out though.
Mm-hmm.
New Zealand bowled quite well. The seamers, Henry got 4 wickets. Trent bowled again 3 wickets. Very economical. Um, but apart from that, yeah, I think it was in the end probably a par score, maybe 5 or 10 runs short. I think it was not a bad score on that wicket.
Mm-hmm.
But India wanted to test themselves. They have been good with chasing all these years, especially under Kohli. So this was a good challenge for them. New Zealand started off. I think they were quite okay at the beginning, but they lost their way in the middle order. I think Kane Williamson's dismissal came at a wrong moment for them. So
Mm-hmm.
he
Mm-hmm.
got out. He holed out in I think the deep mid wicket to Kedar Jadhav. A man with a golden arm. He got the breakthrough when it really mattered.
Uh-huh.
And once Kane Williamson was out, I think they were 105 for 3 when Kane Williamson was got out, and then he was the fourth guy down.
Mm-hmm.
After that, there were more players who had a start. They could not capitalize and then make a bigger score. I think nobody was there to finish the job. That was basically it. But if you were to look at the bowling performances, the seamers were okay at the top. I think they were not so expensive, but I think they were economical. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they had some wickets. They shared wickets: Bhuvneshwar Kumar, Shami, and Pandya. But the spinners, I think they did a very good job yet again. They basically slowed New Zealand down during the middle overs, like they were meant to do, and that basically meant that New Zealand never got a chance to accelerate when they required. Although the real problem was that they didn't have enough wickets in hand. Um, you need to remember that they got bowled out in 44.1 overs. So they had nearly 6 overs remaining, and they were
Indeed.
bowled out for 217. So about 35 runs in 6 overs. It was easily possible if they had a few wickets towards the end.
Yeah.
I think a fair reflection of India's performance in this series, 4-1, and also India deserved to win this match because of their performance. Player of the match was Ambati Rayudu for his
Mm-hmm.
match-winning innings of 90.
Of course.
And player of the series was Mohammad Shami, very good. He bowled really well this series, and I think this will be very good for India if he continues this form also towards the World Cup, leading up to the World Cup.
Agreed.
Yeah, yeah.
Very nice summary. I think you've summarized more or less the entire series. You've done well. So just a couple of thoughts from my side. One is that the middle and the lower middle order of India really came through both with the bat and the ball, right? So Ambati Rayudu was very nicely supported by Vijay Shankar, Kedar Jadhav, and Hardik Pandya. And again, you can see the same three names, right? Sort of showing up, not Rayudu, but the others, showing up when it comes to the bowling. So this sort of also showed there's a little bit of depth that the opposition will need to contend with while playing with this Indian team, right? And also in the chase, I think you hit it on the head when you said Kane Williamson, who had sort of taken up a lot of balls, could not kick on. So this is again where I would say the credit goes to Chahal and Jadhav, the spinners, who sort of kept him quiet during the middle overs, right? And as you say, the figures of the fast bowlers, including Pandya, are a little bit sort of bloated because they sort of went after them in the end. But the initial 25-30 overs were very, very well bowled by Indians. They restricted New Zealand very, very much. And then, of course, Latham and Neesham sort of set up a nice sort of platform, but there was nobody to finish it, as you say. Neesham was left to do everything by himself, not enough support. And in the end, as you said, they had run a ball 35 to get when they were all out. That shows you that even though they were trying to keep up with the run rate, India always made breakthroughs. So you more or less captured all of it. The only thing for me, the only talking point is indeed Mohammad Shami with his bowling has made sure he's now also going to be considered probably for the second fast bowler spot along with Bhuvneshwar Kumar. Now we know the number one is Jasprit Bumrah, right, who's rested. But in this series, with the competition that they have done, so I saw this article where they're compared head to head, and Bhuvneshwar just comes out a little ahead because of the fact that he can also bat. But given how long the initial few matches in the World Cup and the initial stage of the World Cup goes, I think they will be probably rotated throughout. So Shami has thrown his hat into the ring to show that he can be the second seamer in the team, or maybe even the first seamer if they want to, sort of rest Bumrah. This is point number one. Point number two, I think with what you said, with the sort of innings Rayudu played, he showed the value that he brings to this team. There was no, Karthik, and Dhoni was brought back to keep. And as we already discussed, to show that seniority, which he did in the field, of course, right? But with the bat, he had already failed. But then Rayudu made sure that presence was not really missed. Somebody like Karthik or somebody else like Kohli. So he took this mantle and he more or less nailed down the number 4, I would say. Barring something really drastic happening, he sort of nailed down the number 4 position in this team going forward up to the World Cup. These are the two takeaways from the Indian team. From the New Zealand team, as you say, they have gone through a lot of variations. They have gone through a lot of permutations in their lower to middle order as well, right? And then they also played Colin Munro got a chance. He made a comeback, but he couldn't really make it count. Probably if Colin Munro had got an interesting 70, 80 or something and won the match for New Zealand, he would have also sort of gotten a second chance. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it count. That's point number one. Also, they have many useful batsmen in the lower middle order, none of them who went on to finish it. So none of them really took the chance that they got. They tried quite a few people, Doug Bracewell, Colin de Grandhomme, Jimmy Neesham, all these people, right? Santner. And also they brought back Todd Astle in place of Ish Sodhi. But none of these people could really capitalize and win the match. This is the other takeaway for me. So just a couple of quick thoughts. So New Zealand, I think, are going to host Bangladesh, right? And then India will go on to play Australia at home. So they both have their more chances to sort of refine it. But I think this is overall a good series for both teams in as much of rotating players are concerned. But I think New Zealand will be very disappointed with the results, right? The 4-1 is a very damning result for them. So I think with the the T20 series that starts tomorrow, that's the 6th of February, I think they'll look to, give India a bit of a hiding so that they can get their own back.
Yeah.
Right? All right.
And Rishabh Pant is back, huh?
Aha, your favorite. Of course. I was waiting.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's see what Rishabh Pant has to say. He's been kept quiet. He's been kept out of the limelight. I think that's a good thing. Now I think he can come back and seize the opportunity. There is still this one batting slot. I think one batsman sort of all-rounder slot in the team that KL Rahul would probably have considered himself the front runner for it if all those events did not happen with the coffee with Karan. So now I think Rishabh Pant is the front runner for that spot. So I think I still see him making the 15. Let's see how that goes. World Cup 15.
Should be interesting.
All right. Now let's go on to the other series, which is the South Africa versus Pakistan T20 series. So we had covered the first match of the series where Pakistan had lost it really narrowly, right? Would you like to quickly go through the scorecard, maybe? Or shall I go through it, Girish?
Yeah, you go through it, I think.
All right.
Mhm.
So if you were to look at the scorecard, so again, in the second T20, it was a really close affair where Pakistan lost by just 7 runs, or let's say South Africa won by 7 runs. I put it the first way because it felt more like Pakistan losing the match than South Africa winning it, because in the first half of the inning, South Africa were sort of not looking like they were going to make 188. There was even a rain delay, right, at the end of 16 overs or so. But then they came back really strong and got to 188. They were riding on a 65 by David Miller, who made 65 out of just 29 balls. After the rain break, he was phenomenal. Like, he hit 5 sixes, right? And then Henry van der Dusen made 45, and then Janeman Milan, he's one of the new guys. Janeman Malan, he sort of took the opportunity, scored a 33, a little bit of a quiet 33, but a good debut. And Reza Hendricks scored 28. So they had a good, challenging total. On this Joburg pitch, it was not going to be an easy target to chase. But the way Pakistan came out to bat, it was fantastic. Babar Azam is really a revelation in the shorter formats. And he scored a 90 out of 58. And then he was ably supported by Hussein Talat, right? So up until about the 12th, 14th over, there was no way Pakistan was going to lose that match. At least that's how it looked like. And then in the 16th over, Babar Azam gets out, and then suddenly it's as if all the air has been let out of the balloon. And there's nobody that's supporting Hussein Talat and finishing the match. What happened is Hussein Talat sort of held one end of the batting, and so that the other person, whoever would come on the other end, could go blast off. So Asif Ali came, Shoaib Malik, Imad Wasim, Hassan Ali. I think they missed somebody like Hafiz in this lineup, who would sort of lend you that calmness when such was required. I think if you remember, he did this in a ODI, right?
Yeah.
That they missed here. So unfortunately, they again sort of fell away in the back half of the innings, the last 5 hours of the innings, so the last 25 hours of the 25% of the match. Let's say they gave it up, and they lost the match by 7 runs. Again, very narrow. Only other highlight for me is there was a fast bowler called Lutho Sipamla, a right arm fast. Another of the, it looks like South Africa now have this conveyor belt of really good, if I may use the word, colored fast bowlers coming through. So you have, Lungi Ngidi, you have Kagiso Rabada, of course. Now you have Sipamla, you have Junior Dala, another guy. They are all fantastic. Duran Hendricks. So they had none of their starting lineup. There was no Stein, Kagiso Rabada, Duan Olivier. Nobody was there. Still, this lineup came out well. And the other debutant in the match, right, was Lutho Sipamla, who got just 23 runs given away in 4 overs. So fantastic given the context of the innings, right?
And he's an out-and-out fast bowler, right? He's not really a medium pacer.
No. He's right arm fast. And he's 20. He's 20. What I saw, he was already in the, I think, mid 140s. So that's fantastic.
Amazing.
Unless you're a batsman, that's scary.
I love it, yeah.
Yes. So it really bodes well for South Africa that they're able to get the best out of the system they're trying to implement, be it this quota system, whatever you may call it. But when players like this come through, it really does not matter. Nobody will be ever able to talk saying, why are you enforcing a quota system, yada yada. Look at the results that the system is bringing through, and really look at the talent. This is fantastic to see, right?
I think credit to Otis Gibson as well. I think he has probably told the domestic circuit to groom more fast bowlers, because he has that he wants to have a fast bowling attack, right? And that he was a fast bowler himself, so
of course,
yeah,
you're right, absolutely. And also he played domestic cricket in South Africa after their readmission, so I think he knows the system very well. You're absolutely right. All right. So a small point which we already sort of made earlier, right, that Sarfraz has been sort of appointed or has been confirmed that he'll be leading the Pakistan team into the World Cup. So all these rumors and rumor mills can be shut down, right? So that was a good move by PCB. I would like to congratulate them, so that they squashed all these unnecessary talk in the air, so that the Pakistan team can concentrate, go ahead into the World Cup with a positive mindset, with a settled captain, right?
Yeah.
All right then. So the third T20 is tomorrow. It's in Centurion, 6th of February. Let's see how that goes. And Pakistan will want to probably salvage a bit of pride, right? So they've already lost the one-day series narrowly. They don't want to also lose the T20 series. They want to try to at least salvage some pride. The series is gone, but they want to maybe go away with a bit of pride. Also, Shoaib Malik, in his second coming as a captain, has not been successful. Maybe he wants to stamp his authority on the game tomorrow, right? And Hafiz will be available, I think, for Pakistan.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. If you have anything to add, if not, we can go back to the India, the final of the Ranji Trophy. Shall we?
Yeah, let's go. Let's do that. Let's go ahead.
All right. Will you take us through the scorecard quickly, Giri? Maybe.
Um,
All right. Let
Yeah.
me do it. Sorry if I surprised you.
It's
We
all
agreed
right.
on this. My bad. Because I thought I took a lot of time with the scorecard of the South Africa Pakistan match. I thought
No,
you
no.
might want to take it over. Not a problem. So if you were to look at the Ranji Trophy final, the ongoing Ranji Trophy final, so 2 days of play has been completed, right?
Yeah.
So in fact, I'm sorry, 3 days of play has been completed. So first of all, Vidarbha batting first has scored 312, and in reply, Saurashtra have scored 307. So effectively, they have cancelled out each other, and Vidarbha
Yeah.
retains a 5-run lead, which is neither here nor there. So in the second innings, they have scored 55 for two. So effectively, they're 60 for two, and this is a one-inning shootout for the premier first-class trophy in the country, in India, right? Ranji Trophy.
Okay.
So if you were to quickly look at the top run scorers, so Saurashtra sort of before we go to Saurashtra, Vidarbha was sort of struggling. They were sort of 100 and 39 for six, and then it so happened that they had a sting in the tail. So their lower order contributed heavily and took them to 312. Again, if you were to look at the Saurashtra innings, the same thing happened. So they were again having a big sting in the tail. They were again, very, very, very much in trouble at 5 for 131, but then the lower order bailed them out. So again, Pujara, who was very much in the news, um, they sort of worked him out, I think, right?
Mhm.
So would you like to quickly take us through what happened with Pujara, maybe in a minute or so?
I mean, I read an article somewhere on Cricinfo. I think this guy Sarvate, is that the
Mm-hmm.
name of the guy? Yeah, Sarvate.
Sarvate, probably, but even
Sarvate. Sorry, my
yeah,
bad.
I don't know how it's pronounced as
I
well.
don't know the full right pronunciation. Sorry.
Yeah,
Apologies to Sarvate.
all right.
I think the trick was to have a lot of close-in fielders. So on both the offside as well as the onside. So the silly point as well as the short leg. So Pujara was kind of, I think it was still early in his innings. How many balls did he play? I'm just looking at the scorecard
I
myself.
think he only played 11 balls, so you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. First 10 balls or
Mm,
something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and then it was kind of basically he could not just prod forward and push the ball away towards the offside or the onside. So there
Mm-hmm.
was always a guy under the lid, like they call it.
I see.
So it was kind of stifled, and I think this is maybe a way to this may be a trick to get him out early in the innings. I think this may be one of the
Interesting.
things the Australians missed back in Australia when India had such a good series there.
Well,
So and then I think he just tried to move back, play a ball off the back foot for a ball which was not short enough, and then he got an edge, and then Wasim Jaffer caught it at the slips. I think the first slip. So it
wow.
was kind of it was a good length ball. He did not come forward
Mm-hmm.
enough, or so he went back. But I think it was too full to play a cut or something like that. So this may be a way to get him out. Maybe he will
Interesting.
work on it. I think he will probably sort this out himself. But this
Mm-hmm.
may be an opening for people who think they cannot dislodge his wicket.
Of course. No, but yes, there'll always be chinks in a defensive armor. And as you say
Yeah,
rightfully, the slow left arm bowler sort of found it and exploited it. And
yeah,
probably, as you say, he was never allowed to find his feet on the crease, right? And
yeah.
eventually he was in no man's land when he nicked one to slip. This is well thought out, as you pointed out,
Yeah.
and interesting. So maybe teams that are looking at how to get Pujara out of after what he
Yeah.
in Australia of this book, right? All right. So now with 2 days remaining, I think it's anybody's game really. It's well balanced. We don't know, right?
Hmm.
Let's
Yeah.
see. Uh, no problem. So let's really see who can take the trophy. I still back as I said in the last episode. I still back Vidarbha to retain the trophy. Let's see how it goes. All right. Now let's quickly look at some miscellaneous topics, really small topics.
Yep.
Right? I'll quickly run through them. So first of all, Angelo Perera, who sort of already represented Sri Lanka at the highest level, only in a handful of matches, has done something that has not been done since 1938. So what he has done is he's gone ahead and scored two double tons, right? Two double hundreds in a first class fixture. This is amazing. I find that in this day and age, even in first class cricket in Sri Lanka, they are able to do this. So I was reading an article and I quickly were to summarize it. The selection panel in Sri Lanka demanded that there be more grass on the pitch so that not all spinners take the lead when it comes to taking wickets. Unfortunately, what has happened is that has made the wickets a bit bind tightly. That means it's become really good for batting. So suddenly the whole first class scene has changed in Sri Lanka, where there are a lot of double hundreds. I think I read 11 or 12 double hundreds in a matter of 6 or 7 matches, right? Including these two. So Angelo Perera sort of, has been able to do it. It has not been done since 38, where a Kent batsman called Arthur Fagg, who was also very young, did it in Colchester before the Second World War. And then this guy who was representing, nondescript cricket club, did this. So this is a nice thing for all of us to remember. Then, if you were to look at, for example, there is an interesting article I saw from Shastri, Ravi Shastri, not the article, but his comments, where he says, clearly abroad, outside of India, in the southern hemisphere, so to say, and on the bouncier pitches, it looks like he believes Kuldeep is the lead spinner because he's a wrist spinner. He's sort of overtaken both Ashwin and Jadeja, who are finger spinners. And now, because of his performance entirely in Sydney, right, he's completely leapfrogged Ashwin, who has more than 350, and Jadeja, who has more than or nearly 200 wickets, to become the lead wrist spinner in the abroad, in the conditions that are outside. That was very interesting. So, and also the other thing, I think he was jovially saying, this is very Ravi Shastri thing to say, that he was going to call up Pujara and tell him, stop batting, man, go home, take some rest. You've been playing in Australia, now you want to continue playing for your state team. But we should also appreciate the consummate professional that Pujara is, right? He loves batting so much, he'll bat anywhere. Tomorrow, if you call him to bat for the Jalandhar Railway Canteen, I'm sure he'll go bat for them, right? right?
Yes. And karaoke will be very happy.
Of course. So, but in his inimitable style, this is what Ravi Shastri had to say about how Pujara plays, right?
Yeah.
So, quote verbatim, Pujara smells the leather, whether he's playing forward or backward defensive. No one smells the leather in defense better than Pujara. You can ask him if it's Christian Dior or Armani, apparently. So, the commentator or the summarizer in Ravi Shastri has not gone away. This is very clear. Yeah. All right. So this is just some anecdote, funny thing. But of course, in a rather unfortunate turn of events, something happened around the 18th of January, which only came to light for us recently. This was brought to light by a podcast called Cricket Kannadiga podcast. It's a podcast in Kannada language. So those of us who speak Kannada or from subcontinent may want to hear to this, right? So it's a podcast where they talk about the roundup of cricket. Maybe they do it once every 2 weeks or so. But in that, they mentioned a point that Musheer Khan, who is the brother of the rather infamous Sarfraz Khan, who is from Mumbai but went on to represent UP in Ranji, and then of course also plays for RCB last year. The Musheer Khan is this guy's brother, and he, as a captain of the under-16 team, got banned for 3 years. Musheer Khan, who's hardly 16, has been banned for 3 years by the Mumbai Cricket Association. This has come as a very, let's say, unfortunate thing, because this family has slightly a bad name, if I may use that term, because Sarfraz Khan was also a prodigy batting, but then he had some weight issues, and he wouldn't listen to anybody when they told him, you need to exercise a bit more, you're still very young, you're still under 20, you can get your body structure under control, right? And he even got selected to play for RCB, where after a couple of matches, I think Kohli ended up saying something like, he needs to be a bit more professional, he needs to bring his weight under control, something like this. It was not a very nice thing to hear, because apparently he's a batting prodigy, but he shows a bit of attitude, both on the field and off it. So that doesn't bode well, right? So that's why, something, unfortunately, I think the younger brother has picked up a few older brothers' bad habits, maybe, as we say in India. I hope, this young lad sort of makes up for his lost time, and losing 3 years is too much, I think, even at under 16
At
level.
that
It would
age,
be,
yeah.
yes, it would be
It's
crucial,
the
I think.
grooming period. Yeah, sorry.
All right. Now, these were all the sort of miscellaneous events. So now we are back to the last thing that remains, which would be we have a new trivia question. So, yes, of course, let me quickly go through the trivia question, and maybe we can also revisit the issue of Smith, Stephen Smith, whether he
Mm.
comes back, right? So,
Yeah.
let me go through the trivia question. So, the trivia question is, um, now in the history of Test cricket, in all of the 140 years or so of Test cricket history, there's only one tri-series of tests that's ever been held. And I'm not talking of something like an Asian Cricket Championship or a upcoming World Cricket Championship of tests. No. So this is really a tri-series, much like an Australian tri-series that happened all through 90s and early 2000s, right? Where there were three teams in the same country and they were sort of playing each other while the third team waited, so to say. So this has happened only once. So I would like to ask our listeners, when and where was the only test tri-series held, and who are the teams that played in it? This is the question, trivia question. I would like to point out, you can get back to us using our mail ID, armchaircricket, armchair.cricket@gmail.com, or on Twitter @armchaircricketpod. So we are very curious to see what inputs you have and what answers you have for us, right? So we'll be very eagerly looking forward to your answers. Please do write in. All right. Now, if you were to just go back quickly to the point of Stephen Smith, I think that's a good point, Giri. Thanks for reminding me about it. I think I had forgotten about it earlier. So, what are your thoughts on Stephen Smith's rehabilitation from elbow injury?
Yeah, I think we spoke about this offline as well. Both Stephen Smith and David Warner will not be part of the leadership group, as they call it in Australia there. So they probably will not be captains again in either format. But Stephen Smith has had this injury, to his elbow. It's probably not fully recovered. So I think they're probably looking at Ashes right now. So they would like him to be fully fit for the Ashes after the World Cup. He may even skip the World Cup. They probably bring in David Warner, but I think Stephen Smith will probably skip the World Cup and play the Ashes right after that. Just to allow more time for his recovery, as well as maybe that's his future. I think they will look at him more of as a test batsman rather than a white ball player. And Finch will captain the World Cup team.
All right. Yeah. Looks like something. And also, from what you point out, we don't know if and when these both may even ever get an opportunity to captain an Australian side. And that means probably Payne is sort of penciled in as the skipper for Ashes as well, because there are no other tests between now and Ashes, right, for Australia. So you might be right. And I think sort of Payne also showed up a bit of his reputation by getting a 2-0 victory against Sri Lanka. Doesn't matter, right? A victory is a victory. You take it against anybody. So he got
they're
it.
Still a test team, yeah.
Yes. So that's good on him, and I think there's this continuity that really helps. I think Payne himself is growing as a captain. It's not really easy to captain at the highest level, so I think that's useful. All right then. So I would say I would encourage all our listeners to continue listening to us. And there's quite a lot of cricket coming up. We're going to look at the T20 series versus New Zealand for India, right? And then more probably shortly the full tour of Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Rather, Sri Lanka's full tour of South Africa will start. Also, Bangladesh are coming to tour New Zealand. So plenty of cricket still left to look forward to.
And of course, the last test match at St. Lucia.
Oh yeah, well done, well done. And the remainder of the Ranji final. So plenty of cricket we can discuss in the upcoming episodes, Giri. Right?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
All right. So an exciting couple of weeks coming up. Okay then, guys. Thanks a lot for listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast. I would like to thank Giri for his very useful contributions, and I think he sort of reins me in. I tend to run away with the topics. Thanks for that, Giri. And
thanks for having me, Ajit.
All right. Okay. Thanks a lot, Giri. And all right then, guys. Have a nice rest of the day and rest of the week. And hope you keep listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast. Goodbye.
Bye.
You're listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast.